All right, so here's a little behind the scenes breakdown of the techniques and equipment we used to get this shot, this shot, this shot, and this shot. Now, are any of these shots groundbreaking, award-winning, revolutionary filmmaking and cinematography? No, absolutely not. But I think they are 100% a testament to resourceful, DIY, experimental, low budget, or more accurately, no budget, filmmaking. And just to clarify, these are all for a concept trailer for our, meaning me, my brother, and my buddy, next short film. I'm also including a few shots from our last short film too, because they're in the same vein, low budget, resourceful, experimental filmmaking. So yeah, maybe this breakdown will give you some creative inspiration for your next project, narrative or otherwise.
Okie dokie, here we go.
First things first, location. So this is the basement of my jiu-jitsu gym that I teach at and manage. I've been there 18 years, so I pretty much get free reign of the place.
Where's the basement?
Excuse me?
Aren't we gonna see the basement?
You use what's available to you. Costs nothing, looks good, or can be made to look good, and hopefully you won't get shit for filming at. It so happens that my gym also used to be an old Bell telephone lab or something way back when, and it's really just an old building in general. And the basement?
There's no basement at the Alamo.
Seedy, dank, dirty, and just perfect for weird, moody visuals. So let's break down what we did. The lights I brought with me were my key light, which is an Amaran 200 XS with a 48-inch angular softbox, two 4-foot Nanlite Pavo tubes, and an Aperture MC Cube light, and an old-fashioned production spotlight I found a while back on a job. The thing gets so hot and smells like it's gonna explode, but it really is a neat, warm spotlight, and I knew it'd be cool for this shoot, as you'll see in a bit. So I originally had every light turned on and doing something, even though most were down to about 10% intensity. But as we started running tests and checking false color and looking at the entire frame, we realized there just wasn't enough shadows where we wanted them. It almost felt like the whole frame was just a properly exposed middle gray with no depth. So we ended up subtracting light. I suppose the old adage holds true, sometimes less is more. It's better to have them and not to use them after all. Honestly, it's kind of this ego thing with equipment too, like,
son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash.
Look at this complex setup I did here. I've got lights here and lights there, and I lit this space like a real DP. But simplicity is what ultimately won out here. It ended up being one Nanlite Pavo tube, wired to hang right below where the overhead fluorescents already were. That's it. Zero other lights for this shot. And the shot itself is a low angle, frame within a frame, nothing special there either. It gives it some depth with these thresholds in the foreground, and the single overhead nan light actually isolates the subject nicely. If I could do it over, which I actually will end up doing probably, I'll somehow flag off the nan light to control all the spill on that back wall. And back to the frame within a frame, I knew I would shoot through the door, but it wasn't until we got there that we realized we could shoot through two doors and the hallway, and they lined up perfectly. As far as equipment, I shot this on my FX3 with a Sirui 50mm 1.33 anamorphic, but I will say, shooting entirely on a 50mm prime did take a lot of the thinking and decision fatigue out of this shoot.
I think.
You always hear people talk about it, especially photographers, saying to practice by bringing one lens, one focal length while you're shooting. I also put the camera on sticks for all of these shots because we were supposed to have a buddy of mine helping us as the second character, well, actually as the main character in a way. My brother, who is in all these shots, he was kind of the secondary character. But my buddy canceled last minute, so we just pivoted. I had to stand in for some shots, as you see here, actually all the shots, but having the camera locked off on sticks was just another way in which it simplified the execution and took the decision fatigue out of the equation. One focal length, manual focus, 50mm prime, locked off on sticks.
Hey, Sticks, come on!
Come on, man.
I actually think I only manually pulled focus once too. But all of this is to say, in this shoot, on our last film, really anytime you have to, just lean into the limitations. They can be freeing in a way, not to sound like some sanctimonious boner, but seriously, they can. Before I jump into the other shots, please like, subscribe, comment. It really does help me as I'm trying to build this channel out. But before jumping into the next shots, I get it that you might not have access to an industrial type gym or a huge basement dungeon like this, but this is where you can kind of be resourceful. Maybe you know a friend that has a gross laundry room basement in their apartment complex, Or let's say you want to shoot at a state park in the woods after dusk, as we once did, but the park closes. Ask friends and family that have woods, even a small section behind their house. This is where I'll give myself a pat on the back for location scouting and set pieces for our last short film, Elgin Park. For example, we reached out to 5 theaters and got lucky with one that was over 100 years old and a few weeks out from doing a total restoration. So they rented it out to us for a full day with a custom marquee as a bonus for I think like $500. I even shot an interview there for this music documentary I'm working on. We got the most out of this all-day theater rental. We had free reign and the space was incredible. Oh, and that was our last film's entire budget too, besides maybe an old-fashioned cheap radio purchase and some paint, but like that was literally it. But sound design and framing is how we made the crowd for this scene in the film. That's what we could achieve without extras, and quite frankly, without seats in the theater, even if we did have extras. Here's another cool scene we shot in my crawl space, literally that you enter through the back of my closet in my bedroom. This ended up being one of our favorite scenes, or at least some of our favorite cinematography in the film. All that crap is still hanging up there to this day, by the way. I never took it down. This scene was shot at a parking garage near me that, funny enough, the security dude was cool to us and even had a good laugh as we showed back up a few months later for reshoots. There actually was a car in the background here, which was bothering the hell out of me, so I just cloned the clip, did an opacity mask, and flipped it. You would never notice if I didn't point it out. All of these scenes were shot at a defunct train station right at dusk, and quickly, so we wouldn't get in trouble. We had no idea what it would look like at night, and with some upward-facing spotlights, probably put there by the township, we just leaned into that and used them. We're not dragging lights there and calling attention to ourselves. Plus, the low-light capabilities in Sony cameras are fantastic. We also didn't hang around to shoot in the woods for the next shots after these train track shots. We just moved that location to a small patch of woods in my parents' backyard. It's nighttime, no one will know in this shot that this isn't a huge forest. I think it actually worked out nice for what we had. All of these shots were in a little dirt patch in front of a bunch of trees like 50 feet from the driveway. And the main set in this film was actually my basement, which worked perfect with that old 70s or 80s paneling. So we just set up the models there, moved some stuff around like a fridge and an old retro table and Tiffany lamp left by the previous owner before I moved in, and made it look like a claustrophobic apartment. The diner scene was our pieta. No, really though. It was great because we just had my brother ride up to a seafood place, which coincidentally used to be a diner, then did some clever editing and more sound design, and picked up the next shots in my basement. Couple bar stools, some paint, retro crap on the walls, and boom, DIY, super low budget diner. For this scene, just another case where we didn't have the money or time or even scheduling patience for extras or actors. So guess what? My brother plays both characters in the film. We rocked the Back to the Future trick. I should clarify, Back to the Future 2. Like, so simple and stupid, but it worked.
Would you shut up about the car? Hey, and another thing, how do you know where I live? Let's just say we're related, Biff.
All that's to say, being resourceful about locations, creative in the edit, efficient while filming, experimental in execution, and quite frankly, not taking any of it too seriously, including ourselves, just feels right to me, to us. Back to this current project though, this next shot might be my favorite and the most insanely simple shot ever. At first I was gonna shoot this with a 70 to 200 2.8 G Master. I wanted to put it way down the hall into the room behind where I was shooting from, like get some compression. But I said, screw it, let's leave the 50mm anamorphic on there and just see what it looks like. And as I contemplated pulling focus, I realized that the out of focus silhouette as he descended the stairs and stopped in the doorway actually had a nice feel to it. It felt much more interesting and mysterious. So the focus stayed on the foreground. And that's it. 0 lights, not a single one. It was a rainy day, so the light coming in was diffused, which worked out nice. But talk about an absolutely easy and simple shot. And could this have been improved with a professional DP on set? For sure. Hell, it might have been improved if we lit this scene soup to nuts. But again, our goal is to be efficient for these tests. Keep the momentum going, the ball rolling, get as much as we can, and done is better than perfect. So for this shot, as far as low budget filmmaking, camera on a tripod. That was it. Like, I don't own the best cameras, lenses, lighting, or grip equipment, but there are probably people just starting out their filmmaking journey who would look at what I do have and think, well, I don't own an Amaran 200X and Nanlite Pavo tubes and C-stands and an FX3 and an A7 IV and et cetera and so on. But for a shot like this, you don't need to. It's so simple, it's stupid. Guarantee you could shoot this on an APS-C or, a micro four thirds sensor, barely 4K camera. I mean, you could probably shoot it on the phone if you could just lock focus on something in the foreground. Like, it's super stripped down, easy to accomplish. I mean, that's it. This next shot, and this never happens, turned out exactly as I envisioned it. And I'm not saying it's a masterpiece, don't get it twisted, just a super simple frame. But for this, I wanted to get the anamorphic flares, so we obviously shot right into this old vintage production spotlight. And what's nice is, as I had hoped for when planning this shot, you wouldn't be able to see how it was propped up, what it was propped up on, in the final frame, especially if the focus was on the subject. You can see here, once again, leaning into the limitations, being a stand-in, just a back and forth collaboration and figuring out what looks good, trial and error, experimentation. I guess the thing I was struggling with here in terms of lighting was getting it so moody and looking good on the monitor, but acknowledging that it was in fact significantly underexposed. So here I'm just moving around a Pavo tube to bring up the exposure on his face, and there's probably an argument to be made that it could have been the same top-down Pavo tube lighting for consistency, and a good argument at that. I forget why we ultimately decided against that, but I just kicked it in from the side with a cooler tone for some split lighting. Whatever, it worked. I also moved the Aperture MC Cube light around a bit, because at first it was creating a kind of blinking reflection on one of the outlet covers behind him, which felt distracting. I believe the effect on that MC for all the shots was faulty bulb. I also think, had we had all day, we probably could have decked the background with clutter and junk. There were discarded tires in the basement, we could have probably used our ladder, just anything to dirty up the frame or the background. But also, simple work too. But we have him sitting, we have him staring, we have him screaming, we have him freaking out and running away. So a couple different options to use for the trailer. Just having fun and shooting from the hip, at least for this phase of creating a concept trailer. The last shot wasn't planned, but was one of those we have it, let's use it situations. So there's this switchboard circuit electrical grid thing left over from when the building was a Bell telephone lab. Super cool, super retro. You got it, use it. The idea was to frame it a little bit tighter so you couldn't tell how big this circuit board wall was. For lighting, we used the warm vintage spotlight as our key to get those harsh shadows. No need for soft light in an old dungeon basement like this. We also had to prop it up a few times just to get rid of a shadow his shoulder was casting across his face. We covered the windows, but not entirely. I mean, we could have, but it actually ended up helping us just to get a little punch of diffused daylight to even out the room. Same thing as before, move the Pavo tube around to find where it kicked enough light on him to expose him correctly, and magnetize the cube light on the pipe right above his head at a low intensity, just for a little extra top down. So then he just tinkered around, looked mysterious, fidgeted with stuff. I mean, that's it, that's the shot. So all in all, I'm not the best cinematographer or DP or filmmaker, but with a little experimentation, improv, and resourcefulness, I think what we did worked for us and will definitely work for our trailer and our eventual low budget, or no budget, short narrative film. I think it's fun to shoot from the hip. We did it on our last film and we'll do it on this one too. What about this? And let's try that. And this looks cool. What's fun is that we would shoot stuff on the spot that wasn't planned and kind of think how we could fit it in, like right before or after shooting it, to the actual script and continuity of the film. It's probably all a relic or a trickle-down effect of how we grew up making home movies, all process-driven on our dad's VHS camcorder, but that's the good stuff.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
You gotta have fun with it, and some of my favorite shots from our last film came from unplanned experimentation. Shots I still have on my demo reel, and I think there's real charm in experimenting, being curious and even problem solving. And at least where I'm at now, creatively and professionally, I think having fun beats taking yourself too seriously. Leaning into limitations, Even setting self-imposed limitations can sometimes free you up creatively. And at the very least, it makes the process more efficient and can remove a lot of the friction. I got into this to at least try to make some art and have fun, so I'll be damned if I'm not going to keep trying. All right, thanks for watching if you stayed this long. Again, please interact in any way you can, like, comment, subscribe. It really, really helps me as I'm trying to build this channel out. So yeah, thanks, cheers.